Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
On Friday, President Obama came out and said, quote, "People feel like the world is in crisis because of the media." A very simplistic statement. Partially true. The public is scared to swim because they think great white sharks are eating hundreds of people a day, not 5 a year. People are afraid of jihadis that are being protected by the government and allowed to attack the United States, but statistically still one of the rarest forms of death. But the mainstream media doesn't hype people up to scare them, say, about glyphosates in the water, causing, on record, the massive increase in breast cancer that literally kills hundreds of thousands of people a year in the Western world alone. What the mainstream media is not doing is actually letting people know how globally the world is lining up for the type of events we saw in World War I and World War II, but magnified because of the changing technological landscape. I've been talking about this a lot the last few years, this big quickening that was coming, this geopolitical crisis. We'll have increased warfare, increased terrorism, increased asymmetrical warfare, increased financial instability, increased racial and religious tensions, increasing financial crises, environmental crises, because the political class has made the decision to exacerbate those problems and then pose as saviors to supposedly cure those problems to only gain more power. And there's been a mix of that throughout history. There's been different types of elites, some incredibly wicked and evil, some altruistic, as everyone knows. But this time, there's a perfect storm of delusion and decadence and arrogance, not just by the elites, but by the general population of the planet as well, that is creating a witch's brew, perfect storm cascade. And I say I've been talking about this for a couple of years. I've been talking about it for 20 years on air. Just about 20 years in about a month. It'll be 20 years I've been on air. But I've been talking about it intensely for 18. But even more intensely the last 2. And suddenly you see the British Ministry of Defense and the Pentagon and all these other major systems saying prepare for it as well, that it's an inevitability, not just a possibility. And by and large, the Pentagon and Ministry of Defense and police departments and others are not guilty really of anything when it comes to creating the crises. They are then tasked with cleaning up the crisis, which again is another power grab for the establishment. But it's kind of like a billy club going upside your head or a baseball bat for no reason. It may not be guilty itself, but it doesn't matter. It's still the instrument of the destruction. And our biggest problem we face as a species is the complexity of the world and the fact that the establishment has created such centralized compartmentalization. You add that to a decadence cycle that is obviously intensifying. We're in the very bottom of a decadence cycle that if it cascades into a deeper cycle of decadence, it will just be beyond Rome before its collapse. We're already getting there. But we could bottom out, have a soft landing, in my view, and get out of this and really have a new era of prosperity and freedom and learn from our mistakes and get a Nineveh-type reprieve. But it's going to take some Jonahs out there who are willing to go out and get the public to be aware of what's happening to turn this around. Prepares for Ebola outbreak. Cases may exceed 100,000 by December. The numbers are really scary. The deadly contagion continues to spread. And I'm going to say it again. They had major scientific reports out 2 years ago in major scientific publications confirming African studies carried out by the West where Ebola is airborne. It is airborne in sneeze droplets or spit droplets, sinus droplets, and has been transferred between pigs and monkeys through the air. And it's believed from the beginning it comes from bats flying around, basically crapping in the air, excuse my French, and that people and animals are breathing it. But you've got to have it go directly in. There's a spectrum of airborne. You've got stuff that can live in the air for a long time, like fungus and things, can live weeks, if not months, sometimes longer. They believe the curse of the pharaohs, where so many explorers go in and discovered a tomb and then 2 weeks later are dead from respiratory problems, or you can have multi-thousand-year-old deadly fungus in there that our current population is not prepared for and has never experienced, so it's lethal. Now, that's airborne when you've got 3,000-year-old fungus killing people. Ebola only survives a matter of seconds unless it's in microscopic nasal fluid or lung fluid being coughed up into the air. But I've seen very little mainstream media coverage of this. I know Paul Watson wrote about it a few weeks ago. We probably need to write about it again and just say, why won't the media point out that Ebola is beginning to go airborne? And it appears to be mutating and becoming stronger. They've said that. It now gestates or goes through its incubation period over a much longer period of time, allowing it to spread much more readily before the symptoms show up. It's a very big deal. Though news on Ebola virus has been muted since 2 American healthcare workers were admitted to U.S.-based facilities last month, the deadly contagion continues to spread, according to the World Health Organization, with more than 40% of all Ebola cases thus far have occurred in just the last 3 months. You understand that? Oh, that's of all time, suggesting the virus is continuing to build steam. Physicists at Northwestern University in Boston and other researchers are trying to figure out how far Ebola may spread and how many people around the world can be affected. Based on its findings, there will be 10,000 cases by September of this year, and it only gets worse from there. We're going to be talking about that some today. But don't worry, Bill and Melinda Gates have been working on a vaccine for it. And let me tell you, if Ebola goes really airborne and starts killing a bunch of people, I would want to take a vaccine, even if it was risky, to try to protect myself. The problem is you can't go to certified evil government and certified evil organizations that have been caught not once, not twice, but thousands of times jacking with vaccines and other medicines. Then they always go, you people are anti-science. Why, you can get, artificial immunity from vaccines. No, we know that. We're not Fred Flintstone. In fact, you're playing on the ignorant public out there. We read the inserts on the polio vaccine, on the hepatitis vaccine, on the Gardasil vaccine. We know all of them kill a percentage of people that take it, all sorts of autoimmune disorders. We know the anthrax shots they gave the troops in 3 different rounds killed hundreds of them, sickened tens of thousands. It's all on record that A, they don't care what's in the vaccines, and B, they're putting things in them. This is a government, I'm going to say it again, that for 48 years gave black people vaccines that were really syphilis. And first when Tuskegee broke, They were like, oh, we let black people have it and then let them spread it and didn't treat them. And then it was like, oh, we actually let some of them, actually contract it. We would give it to them. And then, oh, actually it started with, well, we had to have a controlled sample, so we would give it to the blacks in the local clinics. It was just unbelievable, folks. And the reason the scientific technocrats did that to black people, poor Appalachian whites, and Native Americans was because they were poor and nobody would listen to them. The globalist, the eugenicist, would have done it to everybody if they thought they could get away with it, and now they do. In fact, it's mainly upper middle class people that run out and get their daughters the multi-$1,000. It's over $1,500 last time I checked. Three-round Gardasil shot. And all these soccer moms drive up in their Mercedes. They take their daughter in. And they get the first round, and then the girl's in bed for a week